Alright everybody, welcome to Multiplying Real Numbers. Now in this video I'm going to be putting in some variables that we will be multiplying as well. So when you're working with your numbers, we talked about in our last video that we look at our signs and we multiply using those signs and what our answer will be, and then the order of those signs or the order of those numbers. They all play a part in what we do when we multiply. Now, this will be, we're going to take these numbers, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to put them all together. We're trying to make them into one answer. You shouldn't have anything left that should have parentheses in it in these problems. So we actually have three numbers. Well, we have two numbers and a variable. We have different types of things here that you'll see. Hopefully this gives you a wide range of examples that you can be able to use when you're doing problems. I would encourage you that if you feel like you're pretty good at this already, that you would pause the video and just use it as practice and use me as a check to see if you got it correct. Alright, so let's talk about a couple tips that I would kind of pass on to you. One is when you have variables, make sure that they don't look like your other numbers or operations that you have. So my thing about this is like t, if you do a lowercase t, sometimes that looks like a pos or like an add or a addition sign. Okay, so for me, when I'm doing problems and I'm doing the algebra, I always make my t's positive, or like a capital T. Okay, that way that you for sure know that that's a T. It's not a plus sign. Once again, we talked about x's in the last video. Make sure not to use x as your multiply. Try not to anyway. Some problems will still do that, but for you, when you're writing it down, if it has a multiplication symbol within, like it looks like the x, I would substitute it out for the dot. Okay. There's some tips there. Okay. Let's talk about multiplication and what these will look like when we're done. All right. You have a y times a -2. Now you're going to have a variable. We don't know what that variable is, but we can still put it in part of the problem. Let's actually do this part first. So we have -2 times a -8. And if you go back to one of my other videos of the basics, you have a negative times a negative. That's just going to be a positive. Now, we still have the y, and we don't know what that is. And so in algebra, what they actually do, instead of leaving it like this, what they'll do is they'll multiply 16 times y, and they'll leave it like this. So now it's 16y, but really what it's doing is it's saying, well, we have a variable, but we don't know what it is. But in the future, when you find out what that variable is, you need to multiply. And so they'll just stick it right next to each other. And that's why in my previous video with substitution of adding real numbers and subtracting real numbers, when you find that number, put parentheses there, and that will help you to remember that that is a multiplication. Okay, so 16y. It's actually, so look like that. All right, so let's move on to the next one. So we just did this. Basically, this problem right here is the same as that. We're just working with the negative sign. So now I have a negative, so my signs are the same. So my answer will automatically be positive. Now I don't need to put an add sign or addition sign here, but I'm going to just put them like this. Now, something else that is important is that now this is an x, okay? And so this is a y. You need to make sure that you understand those by putting the x and the y in certain spots every single time. Put the x or the variable after the number, all right? It makes it way easier on yourself later. Please don't do this one time and this the other time and something else like that. So put the x or the variable after the number that you're multiplying. All right, let's look at this one right here. So now we have three numbers and this one has a variable on it already. So we talked about one of the properties in one of my other videos that makes it, you can do whatever order you want to do this and you'll still get the same answer. I'm going to multiply here, so I have a negative and a negative. That will automatically give me a positive 12. Now, I try to always write out the, well, I guess I can go like this. I try to always write out the steps that I'm doing. So I am finding that if I write and talk at the same time, sometimes I'll start writing what I'm saying, so I've got to be careful. So now you have 12 times negative 7, all right? So 12 times negative 7 is 84, but please make sure, once again, you have a negative and a positive, so my answer will automatically be negative. Now, if you have a number on here, or a variable on here, the variable just comes down and joins that number. Okay? All right, well hopefully hopefully you can see the difference here. Oh, and z's. If you are using a z, I have found that many people will confuse that with a 2. Put a line down here in the middle to make it so that you can really tell that that is a z. All right, let's move over to here. So I have a negative and negative. Automatically, I should know that my answer is positive. Now, 5, okay, there's no number here. Now, you have a t and a t. When you have two t's, this is actually going to come in, we actually talked about it in one of my other videos with square roots and what you're doing with those and squared numbers. So when you have a t times a t, what they do is they'll actually go like this. And so this is saying that you need to multiply, when you figure out this number, you need to multiply this number by itself. So t squared is the same, so t squared is the same thing as saying t times t, like that. Okay? Okay, let's move on to this last problem down here. Oh dear, we have a decimal. No, stop thinking that. Okay, so we have negative times a negative, so our answer is automatically going to be positive. Okay, so 6 times 2.8, please use a calculator. At least in my class, you're still allowed to use the calculator if you need to. But you have a 16.8 there, okay? 16.8, and now we have our r's, and so we should have an r squared, right? Just like that other example over there with the example D. All right, hopefully that makes sense. Watch the video again, try the problems again, and see if you can do them by yourself.